welcome back to listeners to the Fright or Flight podcast, where we rank, recap, and review every horror movie in a given franchise. We're going to continue our Ghostbusters franchise. What are we talking about today?
Oh my gosh! I thought there was a ghost here for a second.
You actually legitimately scared me.
I confused this. Geraldine's actually in a costume right now, everybody. She's dressed up as a Pillsbury Doughboy.
I'm the Stay Puft Ghost, but it's okay.
Right, yeah.
So what are we talking about today?
We're talking about Ghostbusters Afterlife.
I'm Jump Scare Jer and/or Geraldine, the Fright of the podcast.
And I'm Frankie, the Flight of the podcast. That's your namesake.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
You genuinely scared me when you... I was not expecting that reaction.
Would you say you're easy to scare, by the way, as a horror fan?
I think that's a good thing. That just means that, I'm aware of that. And, I think that the horror stuff works because I go into it knowing it's what scares me.
Okay.
But I'm going to go ahead and we're going to dive into the plot. We're just going to dive right into
Jump
right into Ghostbusters Afterlife because if you can't tell, because I'm in costume for this one in particular, it's one of my absolute favorites in the franchise. So, but I will ask you this, I'm going to pose you a question, or rather tell you a nice little joke that I mentioned in the movie. Why can't you trust an atom?
Why?
Because they make up everything.
I love the little jokes in this movie.
Oh my God, me too. Yeah. They're perfect.
Yeah.
So we get a plot continuation. This is a new generation of Ghostbusters, which I personally loved a lot. I thought the writing was beautiful. I think this one is probably the most flawless in the franchise thus far. I will say that it was released November 19th, 2021. I had a lot of laughs. I had a lot of cries. I think that this movie, if it doesn't make you cry as you watch the franchise, I don't know. I feel like it really do a very good job of pulling on your heartstrings. There's so many good things about it. It was produced by Ivan Reitman, who was our previous directors of the first Ghostbusters and Ghostbusters 2 from 1984 to 1989. It was written by his son, Jason Reitman, and Gil Keenan, and directed by Jason Reitman. So we get Ivan Reitman's son directing this continuation of the story, which I love. It's fantastic.
Yeah, we got to see him very briefly in Ghostbusters 2 at that birthday party that they had with the Ghostbusters. And I'm going to be upfront, Geraldine, for a minute about Ghostbusters Afterlife. It's the fourth movie that we're covering.
Yes, it is.
It, like you mentioned earlier, it rides off the narrative of the first two movies, and it's sometime later. And I have never seen this movie before. I've never heard anything about it. I didn't know what the plot was, right? And so when I went into the movie, I was like, no expectations whatsoever, basically.
Okay.
Besides glimpses of the trailer I remember seeing of like the Ecto one. And I remember knowing that Finn Wolfhard, the kid from Stranger Things, was in this movie. And I gotta say, completely flabbergasted. I love this movie.
It's so good. Like, I'm going to be honest too. As a Ghostbusters fan, when I saw this trailer, they do a really good job of not showing you all the good bits. They really do a good job of not even showing you that the old Ghostbusters make a cameo at all. So to me, I was like, where are they going with this? I'm really confused about this direction. I'm still going to watch it, but I'm very weary, as I do with a lot of reboots or continuations, because I get very nervous because of the originals. They are near and dear to my heart, so I don't want them to trash on the story. But I'm very glad that I, defied my negativity, my cynicism there, and I went in and I came out completely changed. It's such a good movie.
You mentioning that Jason Reitman, who is the son of Ivan Reitman, the person who directed the first two Ghostbusters movies, I think it's really important that that's what happened. And I feel like that alone kind of foretells like the rest of the film and how it was handled.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And we're like, this is a movie about legacy. It's a movie about family. It's a movie about respect.
Absolutely.
And man, like,
in every sense of the word, like, that's exactly what I wrote down. When I think of this movie, I think of family.
Yeah.
Because not only do you get this new generation of Ghostbusters, like I mentioned, but you also get the old generation, and it just really focuses on the interweavings and intermakings of family and family dynamics, and like the struggle with that, because the plot in itself is so rich. It's so beautifully done. I really cannot have any more positive things to say about this one. Before I do that, because I know that you are very much a big fan of talking about the budgets for movies, because it is an interesting aspect of it, because sometimes the movies that we love don't do so well, but this one actually did fantastic. A budget of $75 million. Gross worldwide earning more than $204 million, so it still did pretty.
Yeah, and it cost
well.
less than the previous film.
Oh my gosh, yes, and did significantly more.
So it's interesting. That goes to say that you don't need the biggest budget in the world to make a good movie.
You really don't, and I think they also, that's really one of the hearts of the franchise. I would say is that Ghostbusters, for the most part, and at the root of it, they really rely on those practical effects. There is now, of course, the digital art as well, and I think they do lean in that in some of the originals, like the 1984 1989 one, Ghostbusters 2. I do think they do have some of that technology, but it's nowhere near utilized like it is in the reboot in 2016. So I think that they did go back to the root of it, but it also, I don't know, it just had a different vibe. I still think 2016, it gets shit on way more than it needs to, because I still love that one. But this one is just...
It was just a completely different approach where I feel like the 2016 version that had all the women, they were really trying to recreate the original, not just in terms of narrative, but like, and getting a bunch of the cast members be people from SNL, like the original, and having the director of Bridesmaid be attached to it. I mean, that's just going to be a completely different scenario than when you get... like I said, like Legacy, the son of Ivan Reitman, to direct this movie, especially after the tumultuous production to get here, the agreements, the passing of Harold Ramis. I feel like there was so much real world, like emotion and relationships there that, like, of course it's going to be different when like this internal thing is made as a sequel, as opposed to how external the 2016 version.
And also comparing those movies in general is kind of, it's so hard to do because they're not the same movie at all. The only thing that they do is they take that adaptation and just make it their own. So it's just a retelling. But we won't dwell back on that. We have a whole episode on it. Go watch that one, or listen to it rather. This movie deserves its own spotlight in general, though. It's just fantastic. So we have the story is Callie Spengler is a single mom of Trevor and Phoebe, and that is Carrie Coon playing the mother, Finn Wolfhard playing Trevor, and Phoebe played by McKenna Grace. They are struggling. They're a struggling family. They're struggling with her son's independence, and she's also struggling with her daughter not really having much of a connection with her. They have this big they have this big struggle in the beginning of the film, where they don't exactly get along, and they don't have anything in common, it feels like, other than, Phoebe's just really, really smart. Of course, from the beginning, we see parallels to Egon, which is, with the beginning of the film, we do actually get far away features of Egon out in this random field, and we're like, what the hell's happening? At least to me, that's what I first thought. I was like, what does this have to do with anything Ghostbusters? But
when me and Bailey first saw it, first of all, it took us a minute to realize that it's Egon who we're following at the very beginning.
Well, it took you a minute. The second I saw, I guess technically it took me a minute, but the second I saw like 3 pixels of glasses inside of this truck, I was like, oh, it's Egon. It has to be Egon.
Well, anyway, we saw that scene, and once it was Egon, and we realized that, I had the sense of like, oh, they're paying their respect to this person who can't be in this movie. And I thought it was very sweet and very tasteful, the way they did it. And once the scene ended, I thought, I like that. I'm glad they did that for Harold Ramis.
Yes.
And I had no expectation for the rest of the movie to have anything to do with him.
But it's all about Egon and his legacy.
Yeah.
And because people don't really, they speak ill of the dead, which I hate, especially in the sense that, like, okay, nobody really knows him. They just view him as the crazy dirt farmer. That's all we get really of his legacy. And it's like, that's not Egon.
And I feel like a lot of people, I think that happens in a lot of families where like there is one person who might be an outlier who is like just completely misunderstood some way or another. And the family, because of that misunderstanding, kind of just, kind of pretends like they're not part of the family and just lets them be in their own circle.
But I mean, rightfully so. Callie, as a single mother, has really no connection to her father because he left the family. So she has some, I'm trying to think of the right word. It's very, I don't know, not cold, but also kind of cold. You know what I mean? It's very a disconnected feeling for her because she finds out, oh, my father died. I'm late on my rent check. Just give me a week to settle everything and I'll be back. And then they get evicted, unfortunately. Yeah. So that's the beginning of the movie that we get. And so we are traveling from wherever they were. I don't think they even said. I'm not sure.
It looks like New York.
Something like that, yeah. To Summerville, Oklahoma, which I've never been to Oklahoma. From the looks of it, I wouldn't want to go there. It's like a very small town. I come from small towns. Don't like them. But they go to, also, it's just very full of dirt. Dirty. I don't know if that, it just gives me ghost town vibes, which is really funny, actually, because it is a Ghostbusters movie, so it's kind of funny. I don't mind it for the movie, but personally, if I were in that situation, I would be like, dang, this is where I have to go.
Well, I mean, even one of the girls, kind of like the romantic interest.
Yeah, Lucky.
For Finn Wolfhard. Lucky is very like, oh man, like I gotta get out of here.
Which is really funny that her name is Lucky, and it seems like her dialogue about this town is very, like, she's like, unlucky? I don't know. That might just be me, like, I don't know, doing some raging. But
yeah, I did think about that for a second because I'm thinking about all the kids and like there's 4 of them and they're kind of like the new 4 Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, there's a Spangler and a Spangler. And then you have somebody named Podcast who later on when he does wear the jumpsuit, he writes podcast.
I love that.
On his suit. And
I also have to let you know, it's really funny. This is just a really small tangent. Not really tangent, but a little side note. We were watching the movie. Patrick's like, I don't know why, but I kind of feel like that's something Frankie would do, is call himself Podcast. And I was like,
I wish. I mean, that's
that
cool.
That would be funny.
That's a really cool name. Like,
that is legendary.
Have you ever had any nicknames like that remotely?
No, I can't think of any.
And the braveness of this kid to give himself that nickname.
Like a podcaster, nicknaming himself Podcast, and he's a podcaster. It's adorable. It's perfect.
Yeah. Also,
I admire his dedication to the craft. He's always podcasting. Everything's a podcast.
Yeah. I mean, that's great. That's fantastic,
And especially that there's not much to do in this small town of Somerville. So, I mean, for him to make his way and find the thing that he enjoys and whatever, I appreciate it. I think it's adorable.
It's beautiful.
He's a very lovable character.
Yeah. I admire that quality too. And another big gigantic reason that I love this movie, you bring up like how he's in a small town and finding what he loves, is that's a common narrative in coming of age films, like finding yourself and just having your interests be displayed in a way that's so youthful. And
this movie is so big in the coming of age aspect. I mean,
for sure,
we have Phoebe, who's struggling to connect with people, and they have a joke with the mom, Callie, who's like, don't be yourself, like try hard to make your friends, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's just like a joke, but also I hate that for Phoebe because we can tell that she's not exactly like everybody else, and that you shouldn't have to not be yourself. And I think that she ends up meeting Podcast and he likes her exactly for who she is, which I love, and that's a perfect example of that coming of age.
Yeah, I do like that, and I also think it's really interesting. I mean, this portrays this in such a relatable way to me, in my opinion, because a lot of movies they'll show a nerd, and the nerd will be like desperate for popularity or for friends, kind of like Arnie and Christine. Yeah. However, Phoebe here isn't the one. Like, it's her mom really that wants her to make friends and wants her to get out there, but Phoebe could care less. She's happy with herself, really, and the stuff that she's interested in. And I admire that a lot. I do too. I think it's perfect. She is just perfect. Then you have Trevor, who wants to grow up a little bit. He gets a job. He does lie about his age. Yeah. Have you ever done that? Yeah, I had to do that to make my Facebook. I was like 13 when I made my Facebook. Geraldine. And I lied. Dang. And then I think a couple years later, my mom found out that I had a Facebook that I like. Oh, so you made it like secretly? Secretly, yeah. 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 And what'd she say?
I mean, at that point, I was old enough to have one,
So
it
she
didn't
wasn't
really
upset or
matter.
anything?
I don't exactly know. I think it just kind of like fell through the cracks. Like nothing really came of it.
Yeah, I remember. It's interesting because I remember having to lie so much as a person who grew up on the internet, lie on every page. How old are you? And now that I'm an adult, I'm like, oh, I can just put my real,
Yeah.
I can put my real birth date on there.
Yeah, you have to scroll a little while, go
Yeah.
past the 2000s.
Yeah, I'm like,
Yeah.
geez, they need to make this a little bit easier to scroll. Trevor is, just trying to find himself. And then he ends up fixing up the Ecto one, which we'll get to at some point, which is really a fun story. And he's driving. He doesn't have a license. Also driving on an expired tag. Terrible.
Relatable.
Full of crimes. Love it. We meet Lucky, who is the sheriff's daughter, I believe. So, I mean, in a sense, she is lucky. I guess in that way, that is kind of but I mean, not really. It depends on how you want to look at that, whatever. We also get cameos from the original Ghostbusters, Peter Venkman, Ray Stantz, Winston Zedmore, and then we also get Janine Melnitz, Dana Barrett as Sigourney, Sigourney Weaver makes a cameo as well. The weirdest cameo, I think, in this film is Josh Gad. Josh Gad is listed is credited as playing the ghost Muncher.
Of course.
Oh, that
Come
was
on.
my first thought. I was like, I didn't know that Josh Gad was
Me
in here,
neither.
but I was like, is he Muncher?
As soon as you said Josh Gad is in this, I'm like, oh well, he has to be.
I don't understand how, but sure.
Well, he makes noises.
Yeah, but like
I wonder if they
the
used
only
him
noises
for like.
that we get from Muncher are rah, rah, rah,
Yeah.
I wonder if they used him for like a motion capture though,
Probably
or
not.
something like that. Maybe not.
I don't know.
But I don't know. I feel like some of the expressions that Muncher was making, I was like, I can see Josh Gad there.
Okay.
I mean, Muncher is so cute. I love him.
Oh my gosh, you like Muncher?
He's adorable. He kind of reminds me of like a mix between, I don't know. He's really cute, but he kind of reminds me of like Heimlich from A Bug's Life, like the caterpillar. I'm a beautiful butterfly.
Yeah, I can kind of see
Like,
that.
he
Yeah,
reminds
I don't
me
know
of that.
why. It might be more vibes than actual like physical look.
Maybe, but he's just cute. He's
Do you
just
think
hanging.
Slimer is cute?
Yeah, I love Slimer.
But do you think he's cute?
Yeah,
That one right
he's
there.
adorable, and he's funny,
All right. Okay.
and he's just hungry, and they're both like vibes. They're both hungry, and I get it.
Yeah.
Bitches be eaten,
For real.
and it's me. I'm bitches, so I completely understand. I just think he's adorable. I don't understand why Josh Gad was listed as the credit, but
I
it's
don't
fine.
understand why you're so confused with
I
it.
don't because I don't. I just it's kind of like how Vin Diesel is listed as Groot.
Yeah, because he
But that
voice
makes-
acts him.
Yeah, but like the only thing he says is I am Groot.
Well, somebody has to say it.
I guess, but,
But Vin Diesel was also there to motion capture Groot.
Was he?
oh, he was.
Yeah,
Okay, well I didn't know
Okay.
that.
I'm pretty
That-
sure.
But still, I don't think it
if
makes
he
a difference.
was, then that makes a little bit more sense because in my brain I'm like, all they do is like
Yeah.
edit that
I don't
does
think
not
he was.
sound like you.
I don't know for sure, but I don't think him or McConaughey for Rocket were there.
McConaughey.
Yeah, Matthew McConaughey voices Rocket.
Bradley Cooper. But anyway, so we get Josh Gad as Muncher, Bokeem Woodbine, he's the sheriff. J.K. Simmons is like the random ghost in like the Sleeping Beauty, Snow White kind of like glass case situation. Bob Gunton plays like the faraway version of Egon in the beginning. And we also have Olivia Wilde, appearance only, listed as uncredited as Gozer, which was pretty cool. I thought I was into it.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize that was Olivia Wilde.
Yeah, she doesn't actually do the speaking. They have a different person doing the speaking.
Yeah.
She's just
Keeping
as
it
an
true to
uncredited.
Ghostbusters 2
But
with
what's-
Vigo.
yeah, true. But what's funny is, well, not funny. I just really appreciated, not even her per se, but like the costuming was beautifully done for Gozer.
Man, amazing. What a sight.
Amazing.
I was happy to see it.
I was too, but I was also like, dang, I thought they defeated their ass, but no, they're back.
Yeah.
I really like how the costuming and in general the design for Gozer was still very much the 80s like original idea. Like
I do
they were
too.
like, yeah, Gozer is like this ancient entity from the Aztecs.
Yeah.
But for some reason they look like David Bowie circa 1985.
I love it.
I think it's really cool too because I feel like they look a little different
Mm-hmm.
than they did in the first movie, but the vibe is 100% still there.
Still
Same
there.
energy.
Still there.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
exactly. I
And the
love it.
voice sounds very similar to like, "Are you a god?" Perfect, brilliant. But anyway, yeah, Spengler family gets evicted, moves to Somerville, Oklahoma, farmhouse loaded with dirt, lots of earthquakes, all of the things. Unfortunately, Egon leaves them no money. He was actually really far into debt, which is not good, but
It's realistic.
That is realistic.
That's what happens. You know, your parents may pass away, and then you're just unloaded with debt. I didn't realize until a few years ago, until I was an adult, that like outstanding debts, when you die, they don't just go away.
They don't just go away. Your family is now responsible for it, which is kind of bullshit if you ask me. But
I agree.
Like, I'm sorry, excuse me. My relative is now dead, and I'm sad about it. Maybe burdened by that death because I'm sad.
Yeah.
And now you're telling me I have to. Oh yeah, since you're next in line, you now are on the hook for their debt, man.
Now this is going to sound a little. This is going to sound a little unrelated for sure, but I know a lot of people, they don't want to pass along that burden. So for a lot of people, that's super important for them to make sure they got their stuff situated before they pass, so their kids don't have to deal with it. I'm pretty sure it's in Poland. There's a Polish culture. I forget, they have a whole phrase for it. It's like cleaning out the closet or something. And it's like literally like when they know that they're going to pass away soon, they get all their debts together and collected. They get their funeral situated. They clean their house up in a way of like, hey, I'm selling all my stuff so that when I do pass, because it's going to be soon, it's like it's like I'm leaving with everything. It's like when you move, basically. It's like you're moving into the afterlife.
That's really neat.
Yeah, it's super interesting, especially because here in the States, I feel like we're super morbid about that kind of thing, and we never want to acknowledge it. So the fact that there's another culture out there that is like specifically like, oh yeah, that's going to happen, so I got to get ready for it. You got to get ready to die, you know?
I mean, I feel like to approach life that way, like any moment could be your last, it's probably a better way to go about it, because that means you'd be living life to the fullest. But that's also like a morbid thought anyway, because you're like, I'm gonna die today. No, I'm not. Just kidding, because we have tomorrow too.
Do you feel like you live life to the fullest?
No, I don't.
Not even close.
I don't even think about it.
Okay.
Don't think about it at all.
Yeah.
I'm like, when I'm old, like,
for sure.
But I mean, you don't know when your moment will be your last, which is kind of crazy to think about, because I could say, oh, when I'm old and gross and you know, people have to carry me around places or something. That may not happen. You could die today. You could die tomorrow, which is crazy to think about.
This sentence could be my last.
It could be. No, I'm just kidding.
It's not.
But you know what I mean? Like, that's just a crazy thought to have. But yeah, so Callie has to take care of everything there, see if there's anything worth anything, and kind of restore the house if they're going to have to live there since they got evicted.
Cool looking house.
Very cool. I would be pleased to be left with that house.
But you're in Oklahoma in the middle of nowhere.
But I'm in Somerville, Oklahoma, and I wouldn't be happy about that, because it also seems like it's hot there. I don't know. It just feels, the way that they have it, like the lighting in the movie, it just feels very hot.
Yeah, I've never been to Oklahoma, though I would love to go on a road trip into those kind of places.
Well, I've been to Texas, and I know that they're neighboring states, but...
Oh, they are. Is Oklahoma the Panhandle thing?
Yes. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Now, I did not like Texas. It was very fucking hot. So if it's anything like Texas, don't want to go there ever in my life. So, I don't know, just a little side note there. Then we have Trevor, who, again, he gets a job. It's the summertime is what I can imagine, is that, he's working at the Spinner Diner. That's where he gets a job. He meets Lucky, kind of tries to flirt with her. It doesn't go well, but we end up eventually having a friendship that turns into a flirtationship, or a liking kind of thing. Very cute, very innocent.
It's I love seeing stuff like this. I love seeing teenagers get crushes in movies, because I think about myself and like me and throughout my teen years, and like, one, how innocent it is, but also like how naive we all are at those ages, and it's just there's something pure about it that I just, it makes me happy. Some people are, maybe I'll feel this way when I'm older. When two people are in love in their 20s, they're like, oh, young love, like beautiful, admirable. I feel that way kind of about like teens, and like, even though I know chances are those two are probably not gonna stay together or anything, but it's charming to see in a movie, It
is charming. I agree. And then we also have Phoebe, who, I don't know about you guys, she's definitely one of the most lovable characters.
I love Phoebe. I love her so much. I didn't know we were going to get so much of this character that I enjoyed so much. I knew there was going to be, I knew what she looked like, and I knew she was going to be in the movie. I didn't realize it's going to be centered around her and her relationship with her family and Egon. And boy, is it beautiful. Beautiful. And I love spending time with her. She's great. Absolutely fantastic.
So much. I just think that she's a very strong young girl character, and I love that, because there's not a lot of those. I feel like a lot of the time, if there's a young woman character in anything, it is centered around relationships, finding love. It's always centered around that. Nothing about like This is entirely centered around her intelligence, her discovering who she is, and her connection to who that or where that came from. And that's ultimately what we get with this movie. And I love it because she's a nerd. We all love nerds. It's perfect. She's so brilliant. And we also have a wonderful behind-the-scenes clip about Phoebe.
Oh, I was just going to say that I relate to Phoebe extremely. I love her very dearly. She means a lot to me as a character. I think they nailed it with the casting because she looks just like Egon, and thinking about it makes me feel very emotional. But I really relate to her character, especially how awkward she is in social situations. That's exactly how I feel. That's how I've always felt. So she's definitely neurodivergent coded. But also I just wanted to mention there's like this trope of her telling these really bad jokes.
I love it.
And they're just bad jokes. Like, that's what's funny about them, is that they're terrible and they're not well received. And I literally knew some and have used some of those jokes in my life, particularly the fish one. I really like that joke.
Yep.
So you said it. You guys, as soon as she started saying it,
I was like, fish.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I relate to her a lot.
I just had a feeling like you guys have I think Bailey, you said you'd seen the original films. Is that correct?
Growing up, I had seen bits and pieces, especially of Ghostbusters 2. I think I saw most of that movie, but I didn't remember a lot of it. I was very, very young.
Gotcha. Okay. And you have not seen any?
No, this is my first time, and never mind. I'll talk more about it at the end.
Okay. I just figured with this movie going into it, I feel like if you start from the beginning and then you watch it, you can't not have some sort of connection to these characters because of how well written they are, and especially Phoebe being the direct parallel to Egon and as well his direct descendant. It's so cool.
Bailey talked about that quite a bit after we watched the film, about the connection she had to these characters.
I did. Basically, what I was telling Frank was just, after watching the first two movies, I wasn't expecting it, but I was deeply emotionally connected to all of these characters. I had a connection to them just from the first two movies, and even in the first movie, you could argue that all of them are very two-dimensional. They don't have character arcs. They don't change a whole lot. But after the first and second movies, I was just yes, I do actually love these characters of Venkman, Spengler, Ray, and Zeddemore. So I just hold on, let me gather my thoughts. Seeing Afterlife, it was them recognizing that we all have these emotional connections to these characters and just expanding on that, and also respecting the fact that we have this emotional connection, and just giving us even more characters to connect to. And I really appreciate that.
Oh yeah, me too. It was so well done. Before we move on to further delving into the plot, because I want to talk more about the family dynamic, I want to take a moment to highlight Phoebe since she is kind of our main focus of the film. So we'll watch this clip about her character.
Like any father, I want to see great heroes for my daughter. And I'm in the rare position where I get to actually help create one of those characters. In Phoebe, I wanted the audience to meet a young girl who is a genius, who feels like an outsider, who is looking for friends. In the moment that she discovers she's just like her grandfather.
He was special. He loved science like me. Why didn't you tell me my grandfather was Egon Spengler?
We needed a young woman who is genuinely brilliant. And that's who McKenna is. She's probably read more books than I have, and she's exceptionally smart and very thoughtful and very funny. Perfect for Phoebe.
Feels so surreal. I can't believe I'm a Ghostbuster. I'm a Ghostbuster. I've tried to put some of his mannerisms into Phoebe, but Jason and I kind of made her own person, she does have some of his mannerisms, but she's very different from him in a way.
McKenna's a very spirited and smart young actress, and she also had incredible emotional availability. She's the hero of our story, and I think she really embodies all the good qualities of a hero. Phoebe,
I'm a scientist.
Hearing her be upset and saying that, why didn't you tell me about him? He was a scientist like me. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, that is so...
Well, because her mom is so anti-science and has no connection to it because of her father leaving. So it kind of makes some sense to some degree why she has some resistance to Phoebe being so involved in that and being
Yeah.
so smart, because I guess it's such a hard topic for her, but that's also one of the situational ironies that we get to, find out, is that Egon was, keeping up with her the entire time.
Oh my gosh, when
Oh my, I was crying.
when she
freaking
goes
eyes out.
down to his lab, and this whole time she thinks that Egon, her father, has like completely forgotten about her, never acknowledged her existence even. And she's pointed by a lamp to all those photos, all newspaper clippings of achievements, of graduations. It really hit a chord with me.
Oh my gosh, I know. And the notes are even written in like an Egon way, like, oh, she has more freckles now, kind of thing, like just pointing out
Oh,
differences in her. It's just so cute and so heartwarming, but it is also sad, and in like the way that it's in a rewarding way, I would say, is that like, oh, like even though he's not here in the film, he is there in spirit, and they really embody Egon, and so it's really just sweet. But you also can see her, like, I don't know, letting up from that,
Yeah, I mean,
cold grab that she has.
Callie has a whole arc in this about it, where
Oh my
like she
God.
has such a disdain for him and just really resents him in a lot of ways, and especially now for like further indebting her in her situation. And then by the end of the movie, I mean, she's the last person to have an interaction with Egon, and she hugs him.
I cried my eyes out, and we'll definitely talk about that scene more. But like I mean, if it was really hard to not be emotional. Even in my rewatch, I was still emotional. I was like, I'm not gonna cry this time. I know it's gonna happen. Like, it's fine. But even then, I'm like,
This movie made me so emotional. I needed like 2 hours after watching the movie just to process my emotions. Frankie can attest to it.
Yeah.
So it's,
And the second, honestly, that we queued up the movie and started playing it, from the first scene, we were already emotional. Like nothing had happened yet, and we were
just
already.
like, oh no, it's Egon.
Yeah.
And then you get to see his death in the beginning.
Yeah,
that you're
and
not
then seeing
prepared
his
for.
family, as soon as we see his daughter, his granddaughter, it's like, oh my gosh,
Right.
spitting
man.
image.
It's crazy, but Egon is just such a lovable character. I mean, he's got so many funny one-liners, so many specific things, but he's just so brilliant and so smart. And he and Ray are really like the science and like that whole aspect of
Yeah,
the
they're the core of
Ghostbusters.
the Ghostbusters.
And then we have, Winston being a non-believer to a believer, and then we have, of course, Peter Venkman just being there to be the colleague that doesn't. He's just kind of there, I don't know. He's sarcastic. I don't necessarily think that he believes, but he's there for the comedic relief,
Yeah,
of course.
for sure. We had a discussion in the first one. I was a little confused where he seems like skeptical about the whole
Yeah.
situation for a little bit until it turns into like a business proposition.
Yeah, he's definitely. I mean, which makes sense because we get to find out where all the Ghostbusters end up. I believe Ray continues his shop, yet he has the Ray's Occult shop, which is really cool because we get to see that in Ghostbusters 2.
That's right.
So it is a
Continuation.
of that. Peter Venkman. Of course, Bill Murray plays Peter Venkman. Peter Venkman is teaching classes at a college for advertisement and I believe marketing. So, which is really, which is funny.
I mean,
because you have to be able to market yourself.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of what his job was at the
Yeah.
Ghostbusters, and I gotta say, like,
He was the personality of the Ghostbusters, I feel like. So he was like, oh, we're the Ghostbusters, and like talking to people. I just thought it was really funny.
not to keep referencing older episodes of the podcast that we did, but in the first episode of the Ghostbusters, me and Bailey had a really hard time with Peter Venkman.
It's
And we
understandable.
really didn't like his character. And in Ghostbusters 2, we felt like he really redeemed himself in a lot of ways. And in the brief amount of time that we see him in this movie, now that he's older especially, I feel like, for me at least, I can see like he did grow up. He did mature to a point where like I do love him, and his relationship, especially with Dana Barrett, and that brief scene that we see with them interacting each other, just completely solidifies to me that like, despite all the problems that I had with him in the first movie, he has grown into this good person.
Yeah.
Who's a good friend, a good husband, and presumably a good father. Who knows?
I wish we had gotten more of their story. I really, really do. But I mean,
I'm happy with that though. I'm happy to know that like
they at least
he-
acknowledge it.
yeah, that he went there and he's a much better person.
I agree. But it's really endearing to see them all. And we also get Winston again. And I think I don't remember exactly word for word, but they said that he did. So if it escapes me and somebody else has that knowledge.
I know he's a businessman.
He's a businessman making a lot of money.
I think he works in insurance. I think that's what they said.
Okay. But it is, alluded in the end of the film, like he's responsible financially for, what we get in the future in the next film. So before we delve into more of this plot, when we come up on this farm that they are, left from Egon, we see this Revelation 6:12 sign. And I thought that was interesting because I know Revelations in the Bible. I didn't read a lot of it, but what I do know of, Revelations is that book in the Bible is about the ending of the world, the beginning of the end, all of the things, judgment. I mean, you hear a lot of Revelations references in a lot of zombie films. People reference the end all of the world kind of thing. So his specific verse that he had picked out and put on the signs was, a violent earthquake occurred. The sun turned black like sackcloth made of hair. The entire moon became like blood. He just referenced the ending of the world and then also referenced that verse, and I thought that was interesting. Also, we see that Ray Stantz has a tattoo on his forearm of that. I did not notice that until my second watch through.
Yeah, Bailey, we paused it so she could read the tattoo, and it's super fun. Bailey's super into like the small details like that. She likes picking apart like, oh, what kind of music is here? Like, what is that a reference to? She really has an eye for that kind of thing.
Especially with this being like like another callback to the future film or previous films. I also like finding some of the Easter eggs that they have as well. I don't believe that Revelation 6:12 was mentioned in the previous film, but I could be wrong.
It was mentioned. Ray misattributed it as Revelation 7:12, I think, on accident. But so Ray has a tattoo on his arm that says Revelation 6:12, and
so many different,
it's so blurry.
So many different versions of the Bible as well. It's hard to find one that is exact. So that was also something that I struggled with before the podcast.
Ray's tattoo says, and I looked as he opened the sixth seal, ... which is the opening line, I believe, to what Egon has written in front of the dirt farm. A violent earthquake occurred. The sun turned black like sackcloth made of hair.
And which movie was that in?
What? The original?
Was it the first one when he was talking about religion with Winston? It's what I believed. Okay.
Yes.
I was going to say, I wasn't 100%, but I couldn't remember if it was referenced at all. But that's really cool. That's another fun callback.
Great throwback.
So that is just something that I wanted to point out because I thought it was really interesting. I always love when movies reference, anything like Bible verses, because then I like to do the research and I'm like, was that real? Is that real kind of stuff kind of thing? I just think it's really cool. While Trevor is working at the Spinner's Diner with Trevor, so it's Trevor and we get to see his relationship, improve or grow with Lucky. We also have Phoebe going to summer school, and of course Callie's thought process behind it is make friends, get into some trouble, you never know, it's a new start, let's try to make the best of this.
Did you ever need that advice from your mom, like, hey, you should get into some trouble, like you're not getting into enough trouble?
No. I did not want to do that anyway. I was very much a goody two-shoes, rule follower situation.
Your mom never had any issues with you?
No, I had a lot of anxiety, so I didn't really do stuff like that. And also, if I asked to do something, my mom would definitely, she was always the one who would like lay down the law. She'd be like, you're not doing that. And I'd be like, Mom, please, all my friends are doing it. She's like, no. Like, she was very quick to voice her opinions on stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure. I'm with Bailey. I did get the sense of like her parents were very excited to see her like go get out more, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're like, oh my God, she's acting like a teenager, Yeah.
So we get to meet Mr. Gary Gruberson, played by Paul Rudd, one of my favorite characters. He's also a nerd. I love Paul Rudd because in general, he's a very funny comedian. Like I enjoy his
I think
presence.
I've seen him in another movie before.
Yeah?
Yeah. Can't remember which one though.
He's been in so many. So I mean, I would bet money that you've probably seen something with him in it.
He's waiting for you to be like, what? You've totally seen Ant-Man.
He's an
all
Ant-Man,
these
right?
movies.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, I like him in that.
What do you mean he's an Ant-Man, right? You were talking to me about it yesterday.
Talking
You're
to you
like,
about what?
oh yeah, I like Paul Rudd in this movie. He's better than he is in Ant-Man.
I don't remember that.
Oh, of course you don't.
I mean, he's been in a lot of things. Like I will spare you the time of going down his filmography, but he's a delight
Yeah.
in a lot of the movies that he's in.
The first thing I ever saw him in was, I think it's called Role Models.
Oh, I love that movie.
Yeah.
I just actually recently, for the first time this year, watched that movie.
Is it good?
Very funny.
Okay, it's been a minute.
It is very funny. You know, about
Awesome.
about LARPing, being in
Yeah.
the Big Brothers program. Fun stuff. Love it. But Mr. Gary Gruberson, he is the summer school teacher. We actually have a fun little interaction between him and Callie, because Callie's like, "Don't be yourself," as she is, as Phoebe's walking into school, which is something that you would not expect a parent to say. So of course he looks like he's taken aback by
Yeah.
it, and then she's like, "Oh, I just worry," kind of thing. They just have like a little
Yeah, for sure.
interaction.
I mean, shout out to Mr. Gary Gruberson, because he's one of those teachers, and I feel like some people might relate to this, where like they are good at identifying and then fostering a student's interest in a way that just allows it to bloom even further. I feel like I've had those kinds of teachers in the past. Like my art teacher in high school, Miss Averett, and also my physics teacher in high school, Mr. Martin, where I feel like they have really, like, I still remember stuff that like they saw that and they just see that interest. They see that, oh, this kid likes this thing, and they let it grow into something more. Like, let them kind of plant a seed in their brain,
Yeah, I enjoy that, because then those teachers are like a safe space.
Yeah.
I always find it, especially, I don't know if it's just my experience, but at least in my experience, it's typically been like English teachers. I don't, there's something about an English teacher, like, who is just like encouraging you to be your best self and writing and everything, like, especially creatively, that it just pulls it out of me. I don't know. I've always connected with my English teachers. I think there's only been a few that I haven't really connected
That's
with.
so fun, because I'm the opposite.
Really?
I've always hated my English teachers.
Really?
I always hate. That's my least favorite subject, English.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then I've much more identified with like my math or science teachers.
I never identified with my science teachers, I don't think.
It's always been one of my favorite subjects. I think it's cool. There's just a bunch of cool
You know
stuff.
what would be really fun? I just had this thought. What if we got like some cool ghost hunting equipment and actually tried to go ghost hunting? We probably wouldn't be able to go ghost busting, because IRL, these traps probably don't work. I
Yeah,
don't know,
but ghost hunting, yeah, I'm super down. Yeah.
I feel like
Do you
it'd
think
really
you'd be
fun.
jumpy? Do you think you'd be?
I'd probably, yeah.
Yeah.
Especially if you do the thing that you did to me at the beginning of the podcast. Again.
I mean, I'd probably get scared.
If you did that, if you were like, "Ah,"
what we
then
should
I'd probably
do,
do that.
first we'll try to find them. So we'll go to like some abandoned, like old apartment complex or something. We'll bring a Ouija board, of course.
No, absolutely not.
And then we'll see if we can communicate
No.
with the spirit realm.
I draw the line. I don't do that.
So what do you want? If you don't want a Ouija board, do you want like an EMF
Yeah,
machine?
how are we gonna-
EMF
or-
reader.
We don't got the budget for
Do you
that.
want to do the thing with like the headphones and the like?
We're gonna
Yeah,
need
yeah.
we're gonna
All
need a
that
bunch
kinda
more
stuff.
followers before we get to the EMF
We'll
reader.
have a budget, and you guys can help us meet that budget by donating. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. That's so. I feel like that's really insensitive to like say to people.
Why?
Donate now. I don't know.
So
we can
we
hunt ghosts.
we can't be Ghostbusters, but what would we call ourselves, huh?
Ghost jumpers. No, I'm just kidding.
That's a good reference.
It is a good reference, but I don't know. I'm bad at coming up with names like that. I don't know. I wouldn't even know the first thing, but
Phantom Finders.
you have to spell both of them with PH, or both of them with F.
Okay.
That'd
Yeah, I
be
like
kinda-
the
that'd
F,
be
both
kinda
F,
funny.
yeah.
So it'd probably look like a joke thing. People probably be like, "Oh, this isn't real," and you'd be like, oh, "What is that?"
You should go,
You
yeah.
just have to like make fake noises like they do in Ghost Adventures, like knock 3 times. Oh, did you hear that?
Yeah, I
We'd
feel
have
like
to
we
do
could we could go. I think your husband would actually be good too to bring along for that
He
kind of
wouldn't
thing.
go.
No?
No, I don't think so.
Too
I think-
scared.
I think that he's low key scared.
Dang.
I'm gonna call him out. I think he's low key scared
Okay.
because I told him that we should go to the Lizzie Borden bed and breakfast and go to sleep there,
Ooh.
and he said no. He said, "Why would I do that?" And I said,
For fun.
"Because that's cool." And I
Yeah.
was like, "I want to see if anything happens." He's like, "I'm not trying to bring a ghost back home."
Well, I thought he was skeptical. I thought he didn't even believe in
I think
the supernatural.
that's my thing. I think he plays it off that he's skeptical, but I think that he's low key scared.
Okay.
I'm a believer. I'm an open-minded believer
Me too, yeah.
of so many things. So I know for a fact that ghosts are real. So love that. which also makes it really fun because of the inspiration for the actual Ghostbusters in general was because of Dan Aykroyd's situation. But anyway, Mr. Gary Gruberson is kind of Phoebe's first friend that she makes, and I love it. He's kind of a cool teacher, kind of I don't give a F teacher. He plays Cujo for the class of children for summer school, which is hilarious. And he also plays Chucky in a later scene.
I mean,
again, hilarious.
For us, I feel like we kind of went through a similar thing when our teacher. I had a teacher that actually played the Polar Express, and some people would consider that
A horror movie?
yeah.
I mean, the graphics are kind of terrifying in some aspects, but it's not a horror movie.
And we were also played Benjamin Button.
Okay, that one? What the F?
Wait,
And what grade?
which teacher did you have that played Benjamin
I don't
Button?
remember. And I remember
What
one
grade?
time, probably middle school.
No way.
Yeah. Curious Case of Benjamin Button, freaky. And the first time I ever watched The Labyrinth was in a school
Okay, that's
class.
not
Wait, The
inappropriate.
Labyrinth?
The Labyrinth,
The Labyrinth is not
featuring David
inappropriate.
Bowie.
I mean, it is kind of inappropriate if you really think about it because he is old.
He's grooming a
Yeah.
teenager.
So
yeah.
when you think about that aspect, other than that and kidnapping a child, I mean, it's not that bad.
I
It's
mean,
really
it's
cool.
a serve. I wouldn't be mad if I watched The Labyrinth in school. I'm
Yeah.
just a little like I think your teacher was just like, I need to see David Bowie in tights today.
I mean,
You know?
who doesn't want to see David Bowie?
So yeah,
I'm not
I don't,
like I
was-
said, I'm not judging.
Yeah, I was.
yeah,
surprised.
I don't blame Mr. Gary Gruberson, you know?
Yeah, I mean, also like, shut up, shut these kids up. And he's like going and he's doing his scientific things. Well, 'cause they're not going to care about seismology.
No.
But we find out because Phoebe's bored. She kind of wanders off into his classroom. She finds out that he's a seismologist. And here's a clip from the movie of that interaction, which was really funny.
Is this a seismic map?
Yes. How did you know that?
Because it's a map of seismic activity.
Right.
You're a
but
seismologist?
Does that seem so hard to believe?
Figured you for a football coach.
Oh. Thank you.
These don't look tectonic or volcanic.
Okay, Smarty. Here, check this out. This is a volcano, all right? It builds and crests. But this is a tectonic earthquake. Notice a little P wave, followed by a large S wave.
Yeah, I'm not an idiot.
Clearly. Well, this is the pattern in Somerville. Large P wave, small S wave, like an explosion.
Where's it coming from?
I don't know. I set up geophones, but I can't triangulate.
Are you using 3?
Yeah. I know how many sides there are in a triangle.
I just thought you were being obtuse.
Was that a geometry joke?
Yes, that's why I winked.
That's terrible. No, I loved it. Yes, I mean, somehow, a town that isn't anywhere near a tectonic plate, that has no underground volcanic activity, no fault lines, no fracking, no loud music even, is shaking on a daily basis.
Maybe it's the apocalypse.
You know, Bailey talked a little bit earlier about how much she relates to Phoebe in this movie. And I got to say that there's been so many instances where like either Bailey asked me a question or I'm trying to explain something to her. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll show you. Like it'll be something as mundane as like playing a chord on the guitar, right?
Okay.
And I'll show her the thing or explain her the thing, and she'll immediately say, "I'm not stupid. I know that." And I'm like, "Girl, I'm just trying to show you."
Yeah, I'm telling you, I relate to Phoebe a lot, especially when he's like, yeah, I've been trying to triangulate this thing. And she's like, did you have 3 of them?
Bailey, that's so
I would
Bailey.
say that.
Bailey,
I would
that
say
inflection and that tone too. Bailey's always saying stuff like that.
She's so me-coded.
It's very funny. She's just she's adorable in this movie. First of all, McKenna Grace is just adorable. And I think that she does a great job of playing Phoebe.
Oh yeah.
Because I mean, I don't specifically relate to Phoebe in that way. So I mean, to talk to somebody like that would make that comment, I'd be like, oh, sorry, like
I know.
So-
You're telling me.
like I'm not an idiot. Like, oh fuck, I'm sorry. I'm not.
Yeah, I wasn't
saying
calling
that.
you one. Yeah.
So I think that's really, really funny, especially like her interaction though with Mr. Gruberson or Gary, because he's just excited that a kid is interested in science, and he's like,
Yeah.
let's talk about it.
That unveiling of the full name is so funny
Gary
too.
Gruberson.
Like you have a date with somebody named Gary Gruberson.
Yeah.
Hilarious.
Her hilarious name. Like it sounds like, I don't know, a cartoon character. It doesn't sound like a real name. Sounds like it is a made up name, because that's what they do for writing. It's gonna sound like a made up name, but that's.
I think about that and I'm always like, I like it when the character's name is the actor's name. Yeah. And I always feel like, dang, if I wrote scripts, I would always just do that. Whenever we get cast, change all the character names to the actor's name.
Why?
I don't know. I just feel like it'd be easier.
Like if someone's name is Vanessa, you'd be like, you're Vanessa.
You're Vanessa now. Or I change, it was Brittany before, I changed it in the script to Vanessa. Like Will Smith plays Will in The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
That makes sense, but I guess, yeah.
Tangential to the whole Gruberson being a silly name, I think in general I think the original Ghostbusters names are purposefully silly. Venkman, Spangler, Zeddemore, who has these names? No offense if you have them, but it's just they're.
Make a comment on this video.
Yeah, if you have one of those names, make a comment.
Yeah, I've never seen, or Sans from Ray. I've never think I met anybody with any of these last names.
I haven't either.
Exactly. So I feel like they were just playing off of that, and Gruberson being a name on one of these Ghostbusters uniforms.
For sure.
What's also
Makes sense.
Funny is we don't get podcast name, or we don't even get Lucky's name.
I'm sure we'll get them later on.
I like them being the nickname. They're just that thing. You know
what's funny is they're both nicknames, but in this movie it's okay. But in Texas Chainsaw 2, I was mad. Stretch and Lefty.
Those are good names. Come on.
They're horrible. Podcast and Lucky.
Yeah. I'm gonna start calling you Stretch.
No, don't. I'm not gonna answer to it. But I love Gruberson as a teacher figure. I feel like when a teacher takes an interest in you, because of your intelligence, it's always a nice, rewarding feeling.
Yeah, it really is. It's a beautiful moment.
And I think for her as a character, it's important because she doesn't get that at home, for one.
No.
Her mom's not interested. Her and her brother argue a lot, which is really funny. I meant to kind of circle back to that family dynamic. Callie is very interesting as a mother figure. And I don't think that it's necessarily a bad thing. She's got a very dry, sarcastic sense of humor. I think it's very funny. It's endearing to me, at least, because especially growing up in a household with sarcasm and stuff like that too. I've always been like, oh, okay, that's just kind of normal. To me, that just is what normalcy looks like.
For sure, yeah. I mean, she steers the ship, and she is a realistic person. A lot of people with their kids, they are normally looking in their best interest, while Callie is more of the type of mother of deals with what she has, and she knows her kids and their personalities, and she talks to them as such. She's not the kind of parent that is gonna, she kind of talks to them kind of like peers in a lot of way, and just that she's in charge.
Yeah, I agree. I would agree with that sentiment. What's also funny though is that she's not overly, I don't want to say doting is the word, but she's not overly nurturing either, if you know what I mean. In the sense that in the beginning, we get her cutting Trevor's hair, and he's like, "Mom, I'm eating," and then she's like, "Oh, it's whatever. Don't worry about it." She's just cutting his hair, not a big deal. And then she gets distracted by Phoebe doing her science stuff, actually trying to fix the electricity in the apartment. And she's like, "What are you doing?" And then she nicks Trevor in that time, and he's like, "Mom, I'm bleeding," and she's like, "You're fine."
Yeah.
It just makes me laugh. I know it's a little bit of a dismissal kind of thing, but I mean, I don't know. I don't think that she's necessarily neglectful or anything, or absent. I just think that she's just dealing with things. I don't know.
Yeah. Like you said, she's struggling with the bills, and I think a lot of it probably comes from her own relationship with her parents not being something that she has closure on, considering that she didn't grow up with her biological father.
Yeah. I mean, it'd be kind of interesting to meet the woman who supposedly was Callie's mother, who supposedly was Egon's wife or anything like that. We don't really get a lot of that. I don't think it's necessary for the storyline to continue at all, but I just think that would be an interesting thing to know more about. Yeah. Just, I guess, personality-wise, just to kind of understand Callie a little bit more, because she has no interest in the science stuff. And I think that's also just her being coming to a halt because of, Egon leaving.
Yeah.
So it makes a lot of sense.
It harbors a lot of resentment.
Yes, that's the word I was looking for throughout the entire thing. I couldn't use my words today. It was escaping my brain. And I was like, what the hell is the word that I'm thinking of? That is the word. Resentment. The resentment for it, and the resentment that she has towards her father because he left.
Yeah.
But ultimately we find out it's not what, we think it is. But the really cool thing is that Gary Gruberson also takes a liking to the science things. We find out, of course, that Phoebe is related to Egon Spengler. He's her grandfather. And Podcast, shows her around the town a little bit, kind of asks her some questions. She meets Podcast through the summer school, and he kind of, is in her face, like, hey, how's it going?
Yeah,
like,
really forward.
Really forward.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm Podcast. Like, just calls himself that. That's adorable. He's so cute. Like, I'm just like, oh my God, he's adorable. He's funny. He's, completely what Phoebe needs to get her out of her shell.
For sure.
In this film.
I really appreciate those kinds of kids in school. I remember being a kid and, it'd be so nice if somebody who's like genuinely nice approaches you, because for some reason I always feel like high school especially was everybody was kind of out to get you. So even if somebody did approach you, I kind of would have assumed that they're not being nice. Like they're doing it for like there's something or whatever. But Podcast in this is really like he's also just trying to make a friend and just being kind to other people. And I wish there was just more of that in the world, I guess.
No, and I wish there was more of Podcast in general. He's just fun. And I think that, like, I love that he approaches, Phoebe. She tells her little joke and he laughs. Like, he's like, that was good. And he, like, continues to, like, embark on this journey of getting to know Phoebe. And I think that she's kind of, like, hesitant, like, but I think, she does open up to that notion of being friends with him, and I think it's adorable because he doesn't expect her to change. He likes her just the way that she is. So it makes it a little bit easier for her to, do these things. And then, of course, she's interested in science. He's also interested in, like, the history of the town and stuff, and, like, they kind of bond over that and then kind of go on adventures, and I love that. It's adorable.
For sure, yeah.
And then one of the coolest parts is once Podcast and Phoebe find the ghost trap in the home. They bring it to summer school and they're like, investigating it, taking a look at it. And then they bring it to summer school. Gary Gruberson's like, oh my God, this looks just like the ones from the Ghostbusters. And then we get to learn more about the Ghostbusters past, and Phoebe and Podcast kind of go with Gruberson outside past the school hours to play with the ghost trap, which I thought was a very fun scene. Definitely not responsible, but very cool.
Super cool.
I would have, scientific experiment, say less. And we'll get a little bit more of that ghost trap kind of clip in this scene where we talk about the gadgets in the film, because there are a lot of cool gadgets that we'll definitely touch on, but this is one that kind of embodies what I wanted to speak about specifically, but also addresses the relationship with that scene.
Killer replica.
When I see a real proton pack or ghost trap, I'm taken back to being a kid.
Fire it up.
3, 2, 1.
This is the ghost trap. It's one of the iconic items that was in the 84 and 89 versions of the movie. So, of course, you're going to bring it back. There's a lot of new servos and things like that that we can capitalize on to make more functional.
Yeah, that's exciting.
We added some super powerful blind you lights that come out the top.
This isn't a farm. It's a trap.
We basically were asked to build a couple hundred of them and make them all automatically light up a certain cue and then pop open on a certain cue and then shut on a certain cue.
Then that entire array had to be actually buried into our dirt on stage to create the trap field.
Amazing.
Right?
Do you think you could work as like a prop maker?
Oh my God, that'd be so fun. I would actually love to do stuff like that, especially anything with like, if I could ever get into like claymation stuff. I've kind of dabbled in sculpture making, but only with like actual like clay that hardens, not like.
It looks amazing, the stuff you have made.
I appreciate that. I would like to do stuff like that, any prop making. I've never done really woodworking, but I would love to try to do stuff like that too, try to do anything like that. I know that we also have a really cool technology with 3D printing now, so I know that a lot of people are able to make stuff like that. I want to just make things. I just love making things. It's just really fun and therapeutic for me in general. But I love that they've had all of these ghost traps. That's so cool. And the ghost trap that they end up opening, of course, we saw a little bit of that in the behind the scenes clip, which is really cool, that it breaks a lot of glass because of the pressure that's released once that ghost is out.
Yeah, unfortunate. Poor school buses.
Yeah, that's really unfortunate, and I feel like it's going to cost a lot of money.
Probably. I think about that more often now as an adult whenever there's any damage to a city or anything. You know, later on they go on a chase with the ghost that they let out, and I'm like, damn, this is expensive.
Yeah, that's going to be so expensive. Like, I can only I get really anxious because I'm always like, I don't like to be in trouble. I don't like to feel like I've, disappointed anybody, that kind of thing. Yeah. I'm always concerned about my image with that kind of thing. So I'm always like, oh no, I don't want people to think I'm bad.
Yeah, for sure. I know what you mean. And I think about it a lot. I think I mentioned it in the podcast before where, you're not a liar. I've always been a liar. And I've always tried to manipulate situations in my favor, especially when I was younger. And because of that, I would find myself in a web of lies where like different people believe different things, and like if they interact with each other and have a certain conversation, my whole foundation gets broken underneath me and I'm completely exposed. And yes, it was very stressful for me to deal with those kind of situations.
Your entire kingdom has come crumbling
and
down.
now you're exposed as like this person who lied about this thing, who was doing this whole facade. And so yeah, for sure. So I can definitely understand the anxiety there. And I think to myself, O.J. Simpson passed away recently. Could you imagine? Like the pressure he was, because he killed those people.
Obviously, he killed her.
But he had to present to himself like he didn't. And I think about that, and I feel like one day I'm gonna find myself in that situation.
The fact that he went down.
Excuse me?
I said one day I think I'm gonna find myself in that situation.
No.
No, I don't think
not
mean
that situation.
Not the OJ situation. Please elaborate more so that people don't think that you're trying to kill Bailey.
I find myself in a position where like I am in big trouble.
Okay, there we go.
And in a moment's notice, my life could be taken away from me in the sense of like I'll spend another 10, 20 years in prison because I've been found out for something.
This man doesn't do anything. By the way, he goes to work, he eats, and he sleeps.
The IRS is just digging through everything I've ever done, Mila.
That's so funny. I mean, I have a lot of anxiety randomly for anything like that. Like if a cop drives past me, I'm always like, oh my God, they're going to get me. And I'm doing the speed limit. I'm like, what am I freaking out
Dude,
about?
I'm the same way. Like if I get on a plane, I'm thinking to myself like, oh my gosh, I really hope I didn't accidentally pack a pound of cocaine.
Oh my God, I really hope I didn't pack a gun.
Yeah.
I don't even own a gun.
Yeah.
So back to the Spinners, like little diner. It kind of reminds me of Sonic because they have roller skates.
I mean, I can see that for sure. It really made me more think of 50s diners.
I think it's really a cool little place. I think it's a neat
I'd love to go there.
I would too.
See, this is why I want a road trip across America, like Guy Fieri and Dinners, Drives, and Dives. Yeah. I want to visit places like that off the interstate.
I do think that it losing the P once they're doing this like end of the world kind of scenario where Gozer does come back, because we'll definitely get to that big plot point. I think that's really cool. So then instead of it saying Spinners, it says Sinners. So I thought that was cool. So I included a photo of that because I thought it was neat. However, Trevor is separating burgers in the freezer. And I noticed this boy ain't wearing fucking gloves. That's gross as hell.
Well, the burgers are frozen.
Don't care. I thought it was a really interesting part because we noticed that when we were watching it again, and I was like, whoa, poor Trevor. He's really just trying to connect with somebody, and he thinks that Lucky's cute because as soon as he sees her, he's like, I gotta get a job here, and he gets a job. He fills out a little paper application, which they don't have those a lot nowadays, which is really kicking it old school. I feel like
Trevor in this movie has like the zero riz.
Oh my God!
Where
yes.
he doesn't do anything. I don't think to come off as charming to this girl.
And he also lies about his age, and then she finds out, and she's like, sacrificing the virgins, which we're pretty sure you're not, kind of thing. And then I love that Phoebe's like, actually, statistically, 15-year-olds, like most 15-year-olds, are virgins.
Yeah.
And then he's like, boy, you did it to yourself. Why are you lying? You're gonna start this relationship on lies.
It was so awkward. I mean, just this age is so funny to me because like lying about whether or not you're still a virgin or not.
Yeah.
And I love it when movies play off that. We see it too in like a Disney movie that we watched. with Binks the cat and
Hocus Pocus, yes.
Hocus Pocus. Also,
I was like, what Disney movie is over there talking about
they
virginity?
make a couple
But then I was
jokes
like, oh, yeah.
about being a virgin. Yeah,
I like
that's
that.
funny.
That adult humor is fine because I feel like it. I don't know. It's not. It's more obvious to the adults, but as a kid, I
Yeah,
never
for
knew
sure.
what a virgin was, so it goes over my head at least.
Yeah.
So I don't.
Apparently, like the 8-year-old kid did though.
Danny, yeah.
Yeah.
Danny's great.
She was roasting her brother in that movie.
I love that she calls him out too. She's like, he loves your yabos. Like, that movie is just so funny.
Yeah.
Like, honestly though, that kind of relationship between the brother and sister, like even in this movie with Trevor and Phoebe, that's like me and my brother. Like we fight a lot. Then Callie, we have her situation that's happening during the movie. We see her kind of forming a relationship with Mr. Gary Gruberson. How did you feel about it?
It was really cute. I
loved it.
like their situation with each other. I remember being in high school myself and seeing 2 teachers.
Okay.
Like the classroom being able to tell there's some like chemistry there.
Other than that, though, Gary, Callie, really cute. They have a cute little date where Gary's kind of still going on about the seismic charts and stuff like that, the earthquakes.
Yeah.
Callie doesn't really care. She's kind of like, okay, cool, whatever. But then they start talking about Phoebe and how great she is, which I loved that. As somebody who has a stepfather, I always like hope that he speaks very highly of us, and I love that his character already is like, yeah, Phoebe's great.
Yeah, it's hard. I think for me, just because of my age, where it's hard for me to think of people in their 40s and how they interact with kids. Like,
Yeah.
because for me, like if I was single and I was looking around, I think somebody having a kid would dissuade me a lot. And no offense to the kid at all whatsoever. It's just like going from like not having kids to suddenly being being with somebody who has 2 kids.
Yeah.
That's a lot of responsibility.
It's
I
a
feel
lot
like
of
put on to you.
responsibility, and then like, what if you and the kid don't vibe? Like,
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I wonder about that too, where like,
what if the kid like hates you? Like,
or you hate the kid.
Or
I'm like,
both.
God, I hate these kids, but man, she has a level 5 GAT. So I have to like
What is
figure out,
that?
I got to riz this up.
what is that?
A level 5 GAT?
Yeah, what is
Okay,
that?
let's move on. Let's keep
No,
talking.
I want you to say it. I might take it
You
out
don't know
anyway.
what a GAT is?
A what?
Like, goddamn, girl. God.
Jalen is not up with the Zoomer terminology.
No.
I am not.
she's-
I was like, is that like some weird like what was it? Analogy?
Jalen doesn't know what skibidi toilet is.
I don't know what that is either.
You sound like you're. I can't even think of something.
I feel like I'm chronically online, but maybe I'm just online in the wrong spaces.
You're like, ugh, I can't even think of like, what is no cap? Is what you sound
No,
like. Right now.
I know what cap is.
I know. We can move on.
But I'm being serious.
I know. I believe you. You are aware.
And like,
You're
nah,
like,
let him cook. Like, I know what that stuff means.
you're like, I'm aware of the cap.
The cap and I are on the same terms.
Mm-hmm.
We got it.
But yacht is where you draw the line.
Oh, okay. In that case, then yeah, I don't know what you do in that situation. But yeah, I love Callie and Gary together. They're very cute. They're like humor together, funny. I feel like they'd be laughing, goofing off all the time. Callie does tell Gary that she wants Phoebe to get in trouble. Meanwhile, she doesn't know she's getting in trouble right now. We get some jail time, and we get to meet Muncher. And what did you think of Muncher? Because I personally thought he was adorable.
Muncher was all right. Nothing to say about him. I like Slimer.
So Podcast and Phoebe are, they're doing the thing. They're trying to trap Muncher. He goes away. So they're running, trying to like catch up to him. Obviously, they can't get there by foot. So at this time, Trevor meets them after doing this gnarly jump with the Ecto-1, which obviously Egon helps him.
Oh. Right in the fields, yeah. All those little interactions, man.
I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. And I love that he's like around but not speaking. Like I love that he's like helping even Phoebe like locate things and like, doing the little lights and like the little
That was my favorite part of the movie. It makes me emotional now thinking about it.
Yeah.
It all felt very in character for Egon to me. The way that he was like holding the light and pointing it at things and being sassy and being like, when Phoebe's like, how did you build all this? And he just points to a wall filled with degrees. It's so funny.
Yeah.
I love Egon. and it made me very emotional.
I mean, Bailey lit up as soon as like she saw the chess pieces.
I did. I was
having
like,
been
oh my
moved.
God, he's still here.
I know. It's
That's why the
precious.
movie's called Afterlife. You know.
Yep.
And yeah.
Like that's when it dawned on me. Like later, of course, I'm like, oh my god, it's just so good, so well done. But love that these little bits of him helping his family. It's just precious.
It is.
And so of course Trevor, being a young dumb kid, thought he was fixing the car. No, there was like a whole wire that he entirely missed that was completely like done for. It looked like, or just needed rewiring, and Egon did it. And then the car, went, and then he just started taking off. And they go try to catch Muncher, and we find out that Ecto-1 has a gunner seat. I never knew this until this movie. Fucking dope.
Yeah, that's probably a retcon, but I love that. Super cool.
Super cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they did a really good job with this movie with like focusing on like these gadgets and the Ecto-1 and all this stuff that I feel like the original two didn't.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, they didn't spend enough time on in the original two movies. So I love the little ghost capture box on wheels, the little RC ghost box. I love that little thing. I thought it was so cute. And the fact that the Ecto-1 has so many little doodads in it, including the gunner seat. And I'm like, yes, this is what I want. I want to spend more time in this iconic car with these iconic gadgets.
For
and
sure.
Expand on them.
And I got to say, comparing it to the previous movie we got in 2016, while there are some elements about the new gadgets that I did like in that one, they definitely gave more of a vibe of like, let's try to make things we could sell at Walmart in the kids' toy section.
Yeah, whereas
While this one was
is
just
grimy.
like, yeah, what are the cool things we can make and be a part of this? And like, I mean, even the gunner seat, there's something like that's cool about it from a mechanical standpoint.
Yeah.
And just how it moves. It's not seamless. There's gears turning.
Yeah, well, all of this stuff is supposed to look like it was built in the 80s.
Yeah,
And that's what adds to the charm, in my opinion, instead of the 2016 one where a lot of the gadgets were cool. They didn't really they just weren't as iconic, in my opinion.
I mean, and really the car and the trap are more of characters in this movie too, which I
Yeah.
really, really enjoy, because especially we kind of are jumping the gun with it, but we saw it in that ghost trap video with the gadgets that it was, a ghost, the house itself was a ghost trap, and we see all of these like ghost traps lit up. So freaking cool. That was such a cool touch. And of course, Egon knew something powerful was coming, which is why he was anticipating this, and that's why he retreated. Clearly, something didn't go right, because Gozer comes back. They called it the Shantarian Curse. We get to know the minds. That's also a whole different location and character within itself. We get the Gatekeeper and the Keymaster again.
Yeah.
So we get Gozer ultimately coming back, and Egon's been keeping this threat at bay for many, many years, and that's ultimately why he had to leave. So we'll go ahead and jump in to talk about Egon's retreat. And so while Phoebe's in jail, she makes one phone call. Her one phone call is to Ray. So what do you think about that?
It was super cool to see Ray again in general, and to see him running that bookshop. And Bailey got a little upset with how he eventually said something along the lines of like,
Don't bust ghosts, kids, or something like that is what he was saying. Like, don't bust ghosts, it's wasting your time. And I was like, that is so sad to hear Ray say that.
Yeah,
When he was so emotionally invested in this. It was like his purpose.
It was
in
his
life.
passion.
Yeah.
And to hear him say like, don't do it.
That, and Egon can rot in hell, and she's like, well, Egon's dead. He died a week ago, kind of thing. That's just, oh man, to have such a cynical viewpoint of it now.
From Ray, the heart of it all.
Because him and Egon were equally as passionate and involved in this becoming of the Ghostbusters. So it's sad that that's where he's at emotionally with it, because he tells us that Egon, had stolen a lot of their equipment and just kind of left town, and he never explained to the group why. And so everyone just kind of continued doing their thing. This is where we find out exactly where everyone's at, where Ray, tells us that, he's still at his occult shop, bookshop kind of thing. And then, the other two went on their own paths as well. And Egon just wouldn't let up. And he kind of continued on his path. everyone kept calling him crazy and nobody understood, but I think he wanted to protect everyone that he loved, including the other Ghostbusters, and that's why he ultimately, ditched home, went on his way, and knew this big threat was coming because he wanted to not put other people at risk, is what it seems like to me. That's how I interpreted it. I don't know if you guys interpreted it in a different way.
Yeah, I interpreted it similarly. It's like, okay, nobody's listening to me. This is going to be like world ending. I have to take matters into my own hands. And I think that's what he did. And ultimately he was like, oh, I can handle this by myself and not get anybody else injured or in trouble. I think that's how I interpreted it anyways.
I thought it was really neat too how, like, for example, when he in that cave in the mine to keep those ghosts at bay, he had basically like the same technology for the proton packs aimed at this one hole, and as well as like his whole trap at the house to get Gozer being a bunch of the ghost traps. Like in general, just the idea of him using like the technology and the stuff that pioneered the first Ghostbusters is essentially what he's still using now. Yeah,
which is great. I mean, you'd hope that everything, it seems it's held up in this time with no problems, kept everything at bay. But that's ultimately what the earthquakes were, is that this was when that would happen. It was all of these proton packs, crossing streams and everything like that.
That whole scene where, Gozer finally comes out because the Keymaster and the Gatekeeper, do their thing, meet up, become the dogs. And this fella, I think you said Snow White earlier, Sleeping Beauty, whatever.
Yeah, literally, it looks like that.
He comes out of his glass cage and he goes up to Gozer and is like...
That's hilarious, by the way.
Like, together we can rule the world or something. And she just rips him in half.
She's like...
Yeah.
Like, I thought she was
so
going to kiss him or something.
Nonchalantly, too.
Yeah. I didn't think she was going to rip him in half. I don't know what I expected, but it was not that.
No, same. I was like, oh okay.
Hilarious, though. Makes me think of Corpse Bride, but we'll talk. Have you seen that before?
I can't remember it, but I think I did.
Okay, well, we'll talk about when we get there, because it just gave me that vibe. It was fun. Gozer's back, and I feel like she's stronger than before. Once this situation happens, we have Gary and Callie being the Gatekeeper and Keymaster.
Right.
They get possessed again. Fun scenes with those both. Some Easter eggs that we find in that time is Callie rips her clothes off, and then it transforms into this beautiful golden kind of ish dress. Kind of a fun callback to the beginning with Dana when she was possessed. Yeah,
I love to see the callback. So much of my favorite parts about the first movie were just all the Keymaster and Gatekeeper jokes. Yeah, we didn't get as much time with them in this movie as we did in them, but love to see it.
Yeah, they definitely allude to them doing things to open the gates of hell.
I love when they meet up. When she approaches him, he's just like chilling on a rock, wearing like a daisy in his hair.
So funny. That is very Lewis coded too, I feel like. So
yes,
it's kind of like a spiritual successor there.
He gives her the flower, and she takes it and eats it, and then they start making out, which is hilarious.
Romantic.
Very romantic, yes. So I thought that was a really funny moment. Of course, them opening the gates of hell did, but before then, of course, I do want to talk about Gary goes to get like a late night snack after his date with Callie. He brings back, Trevor and the whole family together, and he's like, okay, I'm gonna go now, and he goes to get himself a snack, and he's at Walmart, of all places. First of all, this is the emptiest Walmart I've ever seen in my life. In a small town, that's basically all you can do. That place would be packed.
I don't know.
No, I agree with Geraldine. I've been to the Walmart of our hometowns.
Yeah.
And it would be packed even this late.
I like that he's there. I really like seeing Walmart, because Walmart is such a like real world thing.
It's iconic.
But it's never in like movies, I feel like. So it's super cool to see it.
He goes to the marshmallow section, sees the Stay Puft marshmallows like moving, and then he's like, what is happening? So he's there, keeping an eye on it, like, what's happening? Emerges a baby, and they're so cute, a little baby. I would be so overwhelmed by their cuteness, I'd have to eat them all.
Your itty bitty Stay Puft babies.
Yep.
You've got like 50 of them on the table right now.
I do, and I've worked really hard to collect every single one of them that is out at the moment. I'm sure they're going to make more because they do appear again, so I'm sure they make more, but at the moment I'm caught up, so that's great. Stay Puft's my favorite, clearly, but I have a clip about them deciding to make the mini Stay Puft, so it's a really fun little tidbit that they have that I wanted to share with you guys.
We all have our favorite ghost in the Ghostbusters universe. Mine, and many others, is the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. And when Gil, Ken, and I were formulating all the things we wanted to see in Ghostbusters Afterlife, one of the things we wanted to see the most was tiny, baby-size mini marshmallow men.
The mini marshmallows are adorable. They're so cute.
They have to be a little bit mischievous. Jason really wanted that. They're just having a good time. They play with each other.
It's not that the mini marshmallow men are mean. They're just curious and they want to watch the world burn because it delights them.
We really wanted to give him a look of marshmallow, more realistic, less plasticky than the original film was. The biggest challenge was to figure out how they move and how much do they stretch and squash. There was a lot of tests done, figured out their performances.
Yeah, that is so like Geraldine cute vibes, because to me it's like dark.
I'm
like,
obsessed.
Seeing like them stab each other and then roast over the fire, to me that's a little dark.
The blender.
But that's totally what Geraldine finds cute.
Did you notice the one that got run over by the Roomba? So
Yeah.
it just smears on the ground.
So funny.
It is very dark, honestly, but I also really enjoy it. That's the kind of humor that I kind of want out of Ghostbusters.
Oh my gosh, yes.
So I love
it's adorable, it's funny, and it is dark, and I love it because they're like so cute. You're like, oh my god, it's so cute, you could touch it, and then it bites. It's like, oh my god, so it's perfect. But again, I'd have to eat them. So
I'd be scared that if I eat them, they're gonna do something from the inside.
I'd probably have to squish it first and then eat it.
I'm surprised they don't make like little Safe Puff marshmallows.
Well, I know they have made other little ones, like other action figure ones, but I don't have those yet.
Oh, I just mean for you to actually eat, like at the grocery store.
I think it's based off Jet Puffed.
But like them in the shape of the little man.
That would be adorable. I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying it's not possible, but who knows? Maybe somebody somewhere will make little Stay Puft marshmallows for merchandise to eat. I mean, I have little marshmallows, but I know they're not shaped like the actual. They're actual marshmallows, but I've also had them for years, so I will never open them and eat them. It's just a collectible at this point. But I don't think they're shaped like them. So I don't know. That's definitely interesting though. We have a stack of books in the beginning when we're in Egon's house. It just made me think of the first one where they had the stack of books and Ray and Egon are like, oh my god. And then, of course, Peter Venkman's like, oh, my God, a stack of books. That's completely not normal.
Yeah, you're right. Like, I didn't even catch on that.
Yeah.
Because his house is filled with stacks of books.
Yeah.
And there's one particular stack that's like goes all the way up to the ceiling.
I thought it was funny. Of course, when Egon dies, we get the cherub with the claws again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed that immediately. And at this point, we didn't realize that it was going to be like Gozer again.
Yeah.
But I was like, that's what Zool did. You know, that's what the Keymaster or the Gatekeeper did to Dana.
Very,
I was like,
very
that's really cool.
We had a Twinkie in the glove compartment.
That was very sweet.
Of the car. Because, you know, Egon mentions the Twinkie. He's like, it'd have to be the size of this Twinkie. And, you know, that's when Winston's like, that's a big Twinkie. I'm like, in my brain, it would be old and like gross, but at the same time, we know that those foods have preservatives in them like crazy. They're probably not.
Yeah, that's an original Twinkie too. Back before they changed the formula. Did you notice that he had his collection of spores, mold, and fungus in his little bunker?
I did not.
Yeah, he had like a whole shelf that was just filled with mold and stuff.
I didn't even catch that one. Of course, I noticed the helmet from Ghostbusters 1984, the original one, but the one that they put on Louis Tully.
Yeah. I think Podcast picks it up.
Yep. Podcast picks it up, wears it. It's adorable. We also get the Ecto-1, of course. Fun little callback. I think the only other thing that we get was the Ghost Trap. And I think these are some of the only ones that I've caught. Other than, of course, Egon's glasses, but that's not really as much of an Easter egg, of course. He did wear glasses, but I really could not think of anything else after watching. I was like, this is as much as that I can find. So I'm sure there are many more that I'm missing. If I am missing some and you caught some, let us know. I wanted to talk about Ecto-1 because that's obviously a big character within this movie. So there's a cool little clip with that, and then we'll talk about some of the gadgets, of course.
We all know what it feels like to go into our grandparents' basement or attic looking for something special. And that's what I want the audience to feel like, because that's how we discover Ecto-1. It's as though Ecto-1 has been sitting in your garage or out back the whole time and didn't even realize it.
My favorite piece of Ghostbusters gear it's gotta be the Ecto.
Yes! The Ecto-1 itself is a total love letter to the original car. We made 2 fully working Ecto-1s, and they're finished inside, outside, with every little piece that existed in the original car, except better. We even recreated and re-sculpted the license plates on Ecto-1, so they're exactly the same.
It's an old Cadillac hearse, so resurrecting that look to make it look like it's been stuffed in the barn for all these years and aged and rusted in the right spots. We took great care working with Jason to loosen certain body panels. He really wanted to sell this thing's dilapidated. Real subtle, but it tells a story that this thing has been sitting in a barn for a long time.
So cool. You know, not the first car we're covering, famous car. You know, we did an episode on Christine. And to see that and that they're both fully operational.
Right?
Where's mine? I want one.
I would drive it.
Yeah, for sure.
We do get a new bit that Egon has in his house. It is known as the death whistle, which is a very cool bit, and Podcast is the one who blows on it. And of course, like Gary Gruberson's like, oh, that's a death whistle. It's from the Aztec culture. It's really cool. And oh, but don't blow on it. It's really like not cool sound. And basically, Podcast is the first one to blow on it, and it sounds like a scream. Literally sounds like death, which is cool. I don't know what you thought about it, but I thought it was neat.
I'm pretty sure those are real.
They are. And Adam Savage from Mythbusters actually was behind making that for the film. He actually, there's actually a whole featurette on the Ghostbusters YouTube channel if you guys are interested in that, which I will definitely link it in our description. So if you do want to watch it or listen to it, anything like that, they are available to do so on YouTube. And they have so many things that he was involved in with the behind the scenes and the production of making the props and stuff too, which is really cool. Because I didn't know that until today. But we'll play this clip about the death whistle.
Hey guys, Adam Savage here in my cave with a truly special bucket list of a one-day build. Way back when I first heard that Jason Reitman was directing the new Ghostbusters Afterlife film, and given that Jason is actually a friend of mine, I knew I wanted to make a prop that Jason and his team could use. And they needed something that was about this big, and they took my suggestion of an Aztec death whistle, which is an actual thing. And reader, I got to build it for the film and hand deliver it to the set. Totally amazing. To do this build, I actually commandeered the help of my friend, my colleague, and my co-mythbuster, the amazing Ali Weber, who visited the cave in 2019 and assisted me for a couple of days as we painted and finished and packed up a full complement of Aztec death whistles that I hand-delivered to the set. We also spent a fair bit of time geeking out about Ghostbusters.
That's so cool.
Isn't that?
I love the Mythbusters.
Right? I mean, you make that joke all the time on the podcast when we started.
You know,
Ghostbusters.
you say joke, but genuinely it was difficult for me for quite a bit, especially starting out.
Are you for realsies?
No, yeah, for real. Like I would call it Mythbusters because that's in my head. Mythbusters. I've grown up on the Mythbusters, but I've never, honestly, until I met you, I don't even know if I've heard about the Ghostbusters.
Are you for real?
Yeah.
Haley, is he pulling my leg?
No, he's being for real. When we first started watching the first Ghostbusters movies, he only ever called it Mythbusters, and it was on accident.
Yeah. I'm used to it now because I've heard Ghostbusters, watched all the movies so much. It's in my head now.
But yeah, so those were some really cool like Easter eggs that I found. I don't know if you guys found any other ones that clearly, Bailey, you noticed the fungus, spores, and mold that Egon
Spores,
collects.
mold, and fungus. Yes.
So I did not even notice that. So that's super cool. Of course, we also get to see in that same downstairs area that he collects photos of Carrie. Not Carrie.
Aww.
Her name's Carrie, the lady who plays Callie. I'm so sorry. Callie, throughout her childhood and her adulthood and stuff, which is amazing and very sweet, very heartwarming. So that ultimately leads up to this big family reunion once all of the ghosts get unleashed and, you know, everyone kind of comes to this big boss fight at the end. Definitely have to talk about the original Ghostbusters making a comeback, which is awesome because they kind of show up out of the blue. You don't hear them show up, and then you hear Peter Venkman and his I think it's Peter, and then Ray says something. I don't remember the order. All I know is somebody starts talking, and then you're like, oh shit, who's there? Which is great, because then whenever I saw them, I was like, oh my god, this is happening?
Yeah, I love seeing them. We got cameos in the 2016 version.
We did.
And we get to see Annie Potts early on as Janine Melnitz.
Yep.
But it isn't really until like we get Ray in the bookshop, and then here at the very end we get to see, them
Everyone
suited
in
up.
suits. I wonder what, we don't really get a story or like kind of any background as to why they show up. I don't know if maybe like that just went over my head.
I figure it's just because, Ray finds out that Phoebe is the granddaughter of Egon, and so they need to make their way out there, find out what's going on.
That's likely what happened, but my brain...
I feel like, and also all the lines that they got, I feel like were really apt. And even the way they kind of moved and they talked, it was just like they were the roles are exactly the same as they were back then. And they portrayed their characters exactly the same.
Absolutely, I agree. It's almost literally like a time machine, just seeing them older. It's like, oh, no, my heart. So here is a clip called "I Look Back."
Every single moment of the movie is touched with greatness.
I think what keeps people moved and charmed and delighted by Ghostbusters is it was romantic, it was funny, absurd but delightful, the whole buffet.
Now, the writing is really, really wonderful.
Everybody was clicking on all 16 cylinders. The wonderful thing for me is seeing grandparents with their grandkids and they're all laughing.
He slimed me.
That's great.
A little bit about, them, I don't know, the full circle, like hearing like kind of, it's, I don't know, it's making its mark on our future generations. I know that my niece loves the Ghostbusters. She's a big fan of Slimer. I can only imagine I'm going to condition my future children because I love it so much. Yeah, I think it's really, really cool that they were able to get everyone back. I think they mentioned that there was no issues getting everyone back. I will say that there were, I think I've heard about some hesitancy for maybe the next film, but I'm not entirely sure. You'll have more knowledge of that in your research, I'm sure, because I haven't done further research on Frozen Empire versus Afterlife.
Now, seeing them in this movie, oh my gosh, such better appearances than the 2016 version.
Yeah.
Especially for Bill Murray.
Oh my God, yeah.
I hated that character. He was in the 2016 version.
Yeah, I agree. I hated that character, but he goes out in a great way. So it was worth it. I'm sure their cameos were just more for fun rather than this one. They're back.
They're meaningful.
They're meaningful.
Yeah.
So it's almost like one big family reunion. They're all there to fight the big fight. We get this beautiful, beautiful moment where Egon, we get to see his spirit. And it's a very emotional moment. And especially if anyone grew up as a fan of the movies, I don't know about you, but I was in that theater bawling my eyes out. Like, I went from laughing and giggling like over those little mini puffs to then I'm like literally like hyperventilating, crying.
Yeah.
Like it broke my heart, but in an emotional, heartfelt way.
Phoebe is brave. And to see her, pick up the proton pack and do what she can single-handedly against Gozer once the Ghostbusters were knocked out is a feat of itself. And then to see her get help from her grandfather Egon holding the proton with her, it was something.
A beautiful moment,
really,
to say the least.
Genuinely.
Broke my heart, of course, because of course R.I.P. to Harold Ramis. He's been dead now for about 10 years at this point, because I think he passed in 2014.
Yeah.
So it's just very sad. It's a wonderful, wonderful tribute to him and the
Definitely.
meaning that he brought to this franchise. So I think that they did it in such a tasteful way. It's also a testament to how wonderful our technology is now, because it looks so much like him. It was so I don't know. I can't say enough positive things about it. So I don't know. Talk to me a little bit more about your experience with it. Did you cry personally?
Oh yeah, definitely. There was a lot of crying for this movie. It was just so heartfelt. Even just here in this last scene, like I said, seeing him help Phoebe point that laser at Gozer, and then also to see the rest of the Ghostbusters look over at him and acknowledge him there, and then at the very end to see him running towards his daughter, and or her running towards him.
He fixes Trevor's collar.
Yeah.
He rustles, Phoebe's hair a little bit. It's so adorable. I'm trying my best to be an adult and not cry. Just kidding. Adults cry. I cry all the time.
It was beautiful. It was moving. I think a lot of people often forget that movies are art
Yeah.
as well, and that art can be moving.
Mm-hmm.
And this movie was moving.
That is one of the best ways to put it. And I think it's also funny seeing like the Ghostbusters reaction to him showing up, because they all still have their own quirks while doing so. Because, you know, you have Winston kind of like looking over like, are y'all seeing this?
Yeah.
Then you have, you know, Peter Venkman kind of saying, figured you'd show up at some point.
Yeah.
That's just funny. Like, of course, making a joke in this, you know, lighthearted moment. And then, of course, you have, you know, Ray apologizing for, you know, their quarrel. And it's just very, like, oh, I can't say enough about it. I do want to hear from you, Bailey. I know that you love Egon's character.
I do. So I was bawling my eyes out. Like I said, I needed time after this movie. I just stood in the kitchen and like cried because I love this movie so much, and I can't put it into words how much I appreciated and was moved by it. It's going to be one of those movies that I think about for the rest of my life. I think actually I've grown so emotionally attached to all these characters, but especially Egon and now especially Phoebe. It means a lot to me.
It almost renders you speechless in a
Yeah,
way.
Yeah.
Like you can't say enough positive things without also repeating yourself in the same way. You're like, I really can't. I don't know where else to go from there.
Oh man, I really love it. I really love it.
It was so good. I'll go ahead and give it a rating really quickly, just because there's not much left to say about it. It's a 10 out of 10 for me in my book. It's perfection. I wouldn't change anything about it.
Okay, Jalen. We said in the past.
Mm-hmm.
We have a out of 10 scale.
Yeah, we do.
And we've rated a movie an 11 before.
Yeah, I think it was the Ghostbusters movie that we rated an 11.
I don't want to keep breaking the scale here, Geraldine. And this is, I think I'm deciding right now for the both of us.
Okay.
With the max a scale can go to.
Okay.
And I think this is reserved only for like the utmost special films.
Okay.
That aren't just great films, but like have like just some kind of energy that is, I mean, I don't mean to be over dramatic about it, but like this movie did something that spanned like 40 years of like filmmaking, where like this is a moment to just reconcile a lot of things. The Ghostbusters films, it as a franchise, what it means to audiences that watched it when they were kids, what it means to Harold Ramis's legacy, what it means to people who have been in family relationships that resemble the one we see in the movie. And because of those things and just its general just high quality, as well as like all these emotional context that you get along with it, I'm giving this one a 12 out of 10.
So that would probably make it our highest ranked.
Yeah, it will. Yeah, for sure.
But so worth it.
What do you think, Bailey?
If I could rank this movie as like 1,000 out of 10, I think I would. Genuinely, this is one of those films, I'm neurodivergent, where I would put it on repeat, I think, genuinely. I would do that in my day-to-day. I enjoy it that much. And like I said, it means a lot to me. I'm going to be thinking about it for the rest of my life. I'm going to rewatch it many, many times. So if 12 is the top of our scale, then it's a 12 out of 10.
So what do you think, Carolyn? Are you happy with your 10 or would?
Well, I mean, I don't want to like skew too much, because I mean, I would rate it that highly myself. Like Bailey said, I would give it an 1,000 out of 10 if I could. But I think the only it's just something that I don't want to skew too much, because I've already used my 1 for this season, regrettably too soon. Because once I rewatched it, of course, I was like drawn back in, and I was like, it's so good.
Okay.
However, like,
well, I mean, if you like this movie more than the one that you ranked 11 out of 10, I don't think anybody's gonna stop you.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll meet you both there at 12 out of 10. It's just so fantastically done, and I mean, all of the characters. I mean, it's nice. It's a testament to the writing whenever people can connect with characters, especially like new characters that we've never met before. This is the first time meeting, and that is so good when you can connect with them. Like, I care about, you know, what happens to Callie and Gary and Podcast and Phoebe and Trevor. Like, I care about them. I will say you don't really get to know Lucky as much, so that's really my only critique. But that's still like that's a very minor critique
Yeah.
compared to the rest of the film, because she is a supporting character. But, you know, it's so nice. It's so well-rounded. It appeals to new fans, old fans alike. Like, everyone could become a fan, and they started with this movie.
I gotta say, Geraldine, you know, I think this movie alone is worth the journey to get here.
Oh my God.
I think it's worth watching the first two Ghostbusters and the 2016 version just to get to Afterlife.
I agree.
It's a special movie. It really is.
Special.
And if you've seen Afterlife without seeing the original two Ghostbusters, for whatever reason, because I know some people who have, I would highly recommend watching the original Ghostbusters. Just know that they're 80s movies.
Yeah.
You know, so they're going to play out the way that 80s movies play out. They're not necessarily going to have the strongest sense of character development or plot a lot of the time, but they're very enjoyable. The characters are just so endearing. We grew really attached to them really easily, and I think that they add some really awesome context and subtext to Afterlife that makes it's the reason why we're so attached to it, I think.
Yeah.
If we didn't see the original Ghostbusters movies, I don't think it would impact us quite as much as it has.
No. We've developed that connection.
And if you want to watch Ghostbusters 1 and 2, the originals, they're on Hulu, available for streaming, so watch it there. You can always rent them, buy them on Amazon Prime. I think you can also do that on YouTube. We'll see you next week for Ghostbusters Frozen Empire.
That's right. Our last movie in the franchise this season.
We'll see if it makes us all cry.
We'll check it out.
We'll check it out, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Fright or Flight, a Live Oaks Village production. This episode was hosted by Geraldine Johnson and Saul Alberto Arzmendi Ochoa.
Produced by me, Bailey B.
Edited by Geraldine Johnson and music composition by Saul Alberto Arzmendi Ochoa.